The BPM lifecycle is the cornerstone of the BPM discipline. It gives us a roadmap to systematically and continuously improve business processes. The BPM lifecycle starts with the process identification phase, during which we enumerate and we prioritize the business processes in the organization. We scope them and we define the relations that these business processes have with one another. The output of the identification phase is twofold. First, we obtain a process architecture, that is, a well-organized inventory of the business processes in the organization, structured, for example, according to different types of processes. The second output of process identification is the process portfolio. This is another view on the set of processes of an organization. This time, the processes are prioritized according to a number of relevant dimensions. One of which will be, for example, the importance of that business process to the strategic objectives of the organization. Another dimension could be the health of the process, meaning is the process functional or dysfunctional. The second phase in the BPM lifecycle is called process discovery. In this phase, as the name says, we will discover and decorticate the process and capture it in the form of a so-called process model. This will be done, for example, by interviewing those who are involved in the process on a regular basis. The outcome of process discovery will be a so-called as-is business process model. We call it as-is because we do not try to put into this business process model any ideas of how to improve the process. We just capture the current picture of the process as it stands. The next phase in the BPM lifecycle after process discovery is process analysis. In this phase, we take the as-is process model and associated documentation that we gather during the discovery phase, and we use it to detect and quantify weaknesses in the business process, which we will call issues. There are different types of analysis techniques that lead us to different outputs. Some techniques are qualitative, and they will lead us to organized sets of issues and factors underpinning these issues. For example, root cause analysis is an example of a qualitative process analysis techniques that allow us to come up with an inventory of the factors that contribute to a given issue in the process. Another family of process analysis techniques are more quantitative in nature. For example, process simulation is a quantitative process analysis techniques that allows us to measure the performance of the process in its details under different scenarios. The output of process simulation and related techniques will be a set of dashboards and statistics regarding the performance of the process. The next phase in the BPM lifecycle after process analysis is process redesign. In this phase, the goal is to take the as-is process model and the insights and weaknesses that we identified in the analysis phase and to come up with a to-be process model. In other words, we want to go from as-is to to-be in order to address certain quantified weaknesses in the process. Redesign is about making trade-off between different performance dimensions, 4 of which that we will see are cost, time, quality, as well as flexibility. We will see that the art of redesign is to try to improve along one of these dimensions without affecting too much the other dimensions. Now that we have a to-be process model, we can move to the next phase of the life cycle, which is process implementation. Here, we try to put the process into execution. And this involves at least 2 sets of activities. On the one hand, we have to care about automation activities, putting in place the software systems that are going to support the participants in the performance of the process. This includes, for example, designing executable process models and configuring and coding systems to support this business process. The second aspect of process implementation is organizational change management around the process change. This includes redesigning the works of those who will be working on the process, or training people in order to perform the to-be process model, or putting in place a system for managing the performance of the business process on a continuous basis. In this course, we will focus on process automation within the process implementation phase. Process change management is an orthogonal topic that deserves a course on its own. The last phase in the BPM lifecycle is process monitoring and controlling. Here, we are concerned with continuously observing the performance of the process in order to understand if the changes we have made in the process have had their expected impact, and in some cases to fine-tune the business process in order to achieve the objectives that we had set during the redesign phase. Process monitoring is facilitated by a number of methods and tools that in essence allow us to go from an event log or an event stream, meaning a collection of events that are happening within the business process, and to construct a number of artifacts. For example, dashboards, reports, and alerts that tell us how the process is performing with respect to the performance measures that we have defined. Another set of monitoring tools and techniques, we will call it process mining, and it's about using the concept of process model as a basis for understanding how well the business process is performing.